This show is brought to you by listeners and viewers like you, our TeslaOwnersOnline.com community, HeavenX.com Tesla accessories, and our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/TeslaOwnersOnline. Do I need to do the Joe Rogan thing and count down from 5?
You could.
No, that's okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome again to the podcast. Yes, Eric is doing the countdown for us. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Listen, we're going to have some fun tonight because we're going to talk about Tesla's Q2 earnings call that happened last night. And I'll tell you, I have not seen this much excitement about Q2 because going into it, obviously because of the COVID situation and the factory shutdown, everybody's wondering, like, are they actually going to post a profit this time around? Not to mention that if they did post a genuine profit, that would guarantee 4 consecutive quarters of profits for Tesla, which would allow them to be included in the S&P 500. So, lo and behold, they did post a profit, which is quite interesting. I'm just going to read off the numbers. Obviously, this is not a channel that we talk about financials because it's not a bailiwick. If you're really interested in that kind of thing, go look at Galileo Russell's channel. They're Hyperchange. He's an expert in that stuff. Really good friend of ours. I tried getting him on the show, but he's too busy. But he will come on the show eventually, and we'll talk about that stuff. So anyways, so I'm just going to rattle off a little bit at some of the numbers in case you might have missed it. And then, for the first time, we actually have Elon on the show. Clickbait, I'm sorry. No, I actually...
clickbait.
Yes, sorry. I spent a lot of time... I actually recorded the earnings call last night, and I took a lot of time editing out some really juicy clips. So we will play those back so you guys can follow along, and we'll have a discussion about that. All right. So let's get into this. Cash on hand. Tesla says they had a $535 million increase in their cash and cash equivalents in Q2 to a total of $8.6 billion with a B of money on hand. Unless they want to raise more debt, they don't need to go to the cash markets. And I just read online today that Tesla has approximately $8.3 billion in debt. So if they really wanted to, not wise, they could pay off that debt and still have money left over. So anyways, operating cash flow less Capex, which is free cash flow of $418 million in Q2. Now, here's the big one, profitability. They've posted a $327 million GAAP operating income at 5.4% operating margin in Q2, which translates, after all things is said and done, $104 million of GAAP net income. That's like real dollars in the bank account at the end of the day. 451 non-GAAP net income in Q2. So that guarantees them that they've now had 4 consecutive quarters of profitability. Now, there is some talk in there that there's some regulatory credits that they've had to sell to other car manufacturers who are not pulling their weight. So, obviously the negative Nellies out on the internet are using that as their usual. But anyways, so profit is profit as far as I'm concerned. Here's the big one. And we kind of expected that they were better announce something sooner rather than later as far as the Gigafactory is concerned, the next one for the U.S. And I kind of surmised this might be the opportunity for them to announce it, and that's exactly what they did. Lo and behold, Austin, Texas has won the contract for the next Tesla Gigafactory. Elon went on to say, and we'll play the audio clip here in a little bit, but they've already started work. They've started clearing out some land, doing some preliminary work this past weekend. So congratulations to Austin and Travis County for winning the contract. Again, congratulations also go out to the guys in Tulsa who did a phenomenal job trying to attract Tesla's attention, and doesn't preclude them being able to get awarded something in the future. So anyways, that's where it's happening. Our money was kind of on Texas just based on historical things as far as Elon was concerned, but that's where it's happening. So having said that, I think we should just jump in and let's play some audio clips. I've been wanting to do this for so long, but my software has just been finicky, but I finally figured out. All right, so the first audio clip is about 2 minutes long, and it's Elon's opening comments as well as the comments about the Gigafactory. So let's listen in.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Tesla team for exceptional execution in the second quarter, despite tremendous difficulties They've done an incredible job, and it's an honor to work with such a great team. There were so many challenges, too numerous to name, and as a result, we were able to achieve our fourth consecutive profitable quarter. And although the automotive industry was down about 30% year over year in the first half of the year, we managed to grow deliveries in the first half of the year. We're also very excited to announce that we're going to be building our next Gigafactory in Texas. It's going to be right near Austin. Go into a bit of detail on this, and then I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. The location is 5 minutes from Austin International Airport and 15 minutes from downtown Austin, and it's about 2,000 acres. And we're going to make it a factory that is going to be stunning. It's right on the Colorado River, so we're actually going to have a boardwalk where there'll be a hiking, biking trail. It's going to basically be an ecological paradise. Birds in the trees, butterflies, fish in the stream, and it'll be open to the public as well. So not closed and only Tesla. So if anyone's interested in working at Giga Texas, engineering, production, whatever the case may be, please let us know. This is we're going to be doing a major factory there, and it's also where we'll be doing Cybertruck there, the Tesla Semi, and we'll be doing Model 3 and Y for the eastern half of North America. Now, at the same time, I want to say we will continue to grow in California, but we expect California to do Model S and X for worldwide consumption and 3 and Y for the western half of North America. And then we think probably also the Tesla Roadster, a future program, would also make sense in California. So I think this is a nice split between Texas and California. And just to emphasize, we'll continue to grow in California. We'll be creating a massive factory and Cybertruck and semi programs in Texas. I also want to just do a shout out to Tulsa. Just say thank you very much for the Tulsa team, the economic development team, and the governor. Really, I was super impressed, and for sure, strongly consider Tulsa for future expansion of Tesla down the road.
Well, that's the first clip. Obviously, there's lots of little nuggets in there to unpack. I mean, obviously, about the Gigafactory, 3 and Y production for the eastern part of the country is going to happen there. Obviously, the semi-truck as well. Lower volume vehicles such as the S and X, and looks like future programs such as Roadster is going to happen in Fremont. Where they're going to build that, I have no idea. There's no room in Fremont. I don't know, whatever. And for the West Coast, 3 and Ys will continue there. Oh, I forgot to mention, of course, Cybertruck is happening over there. So this is the first time also that, Elon's actually spoken about the Roadster in quite some time. So it's good that it's kind of on the roadmap, and we've got a little bit of clarification as to exactly, what the plans were. I mean, there was a lot of conjecture. I mean, I've been saying this for quite some time that, Gigafactory 1 is still not even finished yet. Like at what point? And we were supposed to be done by the end of this year, like 2020, right? And doesn't seem to be anything really going on as far as expansions is concerned there. So I don't know. The other thing, too, they didn't clarify is whether they were actually going to do cell production in the Texas factory. That still hasn't been 100% addressed. I mean, they have mentioned it in the past that future gigafactories would have cell production, but still a little vague on the details. What do you guys,
Well, that kind of plays into what you just said. If they're not really going full blast ramping up the, Gigafactory 1 in Nevada, does that mean that it's because Texas is going to be self-sufficient as far as the cell goes? That would sort of explain it, wouldn't it?
We'll see. Battery day is coming. Tesla's going a lot more vertical as far as their own cell production. Now, when is that dropping? Is that supposed to be like immediately, or is that being produced somewhere else? Later.
Well, that's the other thing, and I'm thinking about this is if the Cybertruck uses a different, pack architecture or cell architecture. That we suspect it does, right? We think there's some sort of a breakthrough that allowed them to get to that crazy price point with the battery capacity that it has. So maybe it made more sense for them to start fresh with cell production for that vehicle on location versus, trying to put in a new line with a different technology at Gigafactory 1, which is fairly far away. So you've got a lot of transportation costs. To me, it all plays out. It makes a hell of a lot more sense for them to be making the cells down in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Elon did say, and I don't know if it's in my audio clips here, but they did say that, actually Jerome Guillen mentioned that the semi-truck will be going into production next year. And then, of course, he reaffirmed again that Tesla would be their very first customers for that. And obviously between the route between Nevada and Fremont for cell transportation, pack and, the drivetrains and that type of thing. So anyways, it's still going to be a little while before people get them in their hands. But anyway, things are shaping up. We had spoken some time ago on a different show about whether the Gigafactory in Texas would actually end up with a paint shop. Remember how we had spoken about that because, we knew that Cybertruck's going to go there and Cybertruck doesn't need a paint shop. But now we have confirmation that the Semi is going to be made there, the 3 and the Y. So definitely they're going to be building some kind of paint shop on there. So I'm hoping, at least on that front, that maybe some of those cars might have superior paint than the ones coming out of Fremont. But anyways. Let's see here. So that's the talk about what's going on at the Gigafactory. And as Tesla breaks ground and does more construction over there, as they are doing currently in Berlin, we'll have more information on that. I'm kind of going out of order a little bit, but Elon did talk a little about their solar business. So let's listen on this clip. It's only about a minute long.
Solar. We recently adjusted the pricing of our retrofit solar. So Tesla Solar is the lowest cost solar in the United States. And we added a lowest cost guarantee and a money back guarantee. So we're very confident that people will love our solar product, whether it's the solar retrofit or solar roof. Our solar is now 30% cheaper than the US average. After the federal tax credit, Tesla Solar now costs $1.49 per watt. And it's a very simple, highly automated, single-click experience. So definitely think about Tesla, whether you want a new roof or Tesla Solar roof, or you want solar on your existing roof. Either way, we're the company to go to. And then you can also get a power wall and have energy independence and be your own utility. I think that product is really coming together, and it's only going to get better later this year.
So there's definitely some movement on the solar front. In the letter, Tesla does say that solar roof installations roughly tripled in Q2 compared to Q1. And they say they continue to expand their installation team to increase the deployment rate. We still don't have a final count of how many roofs they've actually done on this, but I think that's encouraging. Again, still no indication as to when they're going to open that up to other markets. I think the U.S. still has got a long way to anywhere reach saturation. I have a reservation. Not for the solar roof, but regular panels. But again, still no indication. And I would like to do that, but time is ticking. I don't want to be doing it in 5 or 6 years when retirement's coming around and got no money to pay for that stuff. So, yeah, kind of interesting. Any thoughts on the solar thing? I mean, is anybody looking? I mean, Florida's perfect for that kind of thing. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted this yesterday following the call, and I was looking at all the different stuff on Twitter resulting from the call. And the one thing I wanted to drive home yesterday, which I'll say again here today, which is Tesla is not a car company. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the talk on Bloomberg and all these different news organizations is that it's the cars. The focus is on the cars. And ideally, that's where the moneymaker is, right? In terms of your gross revenue, your greatest revenue will be likely in the automobile sector. But Tesla, in its 17-year history, has never defined itself as a car company. It's a sustainable energy company. And what they're good at is producing batteries that can be recharged.
That is their core technology. Yeah.
Right, that's the core business. And they use technology to make that all happen. So when I think about their energy deployments that they've had, whether it's their megawatt systems or solar arrays on someone's house or anything like that, to me, that's what Tesla really is all about. Their ability to use their technology in batteries and computers and put that all together into an automobile just makes part of what their mission is even easier to accomplish. But ideally, people focus so much on, what's the car going to happen? Where's the factory? But like solar production, energy production, batteries, I mean, all these different things, these major systems that are deploying across the world, that matters a lot more, I think, long-term to their viability than anything else Tesla does. So it's good to see that there was an increase. I know in looking at the numbers quarter over quarter, they had, I think, fewer installations, but a higher energy output based on what the installations were. So I think it'd behoove them to really make that a focal point as much as they can the rest of 2020. That way they're setting themselves up for success come next year when, fingers crossed, COVID things sort of subside. and that more installers can go to people's homes and kind of ramp things up. Because right now, that to me is the part of their business that's been lagging behind for quite a bit. There's been such a focus on, the vehicle side of their company, but to me, the energy and solar storage part of their company needs to really be a focus in the next, say, 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I think that side of the business has been very much undervalued and underappreciated. Keep in mind, though, when they were ramping up Model 3, all of their resources was on Model 3. They literally pulled people from all kinds of departments and stuff. So obviously it became the kind of the neglected stepchild there for a little while. But now that things are solidified, Model Y is ramping well, they can divert more resources to get that. So that's why we've seen a big increase in the solar situation. We have a Gigafactory 2 just literally across the border over here in Buffalo. And so my understanding is that they're still ramping quite well over there. So they still got a ways to go, though, because, like I said, there's lots of other markets like that have solar products, especially from Tesla. And right now, I couldn't pay them enough the money to get them to come up and deliver on anything. So anyways.
And that's been really an issue for a lot of customers is I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen and nothing's really going on. There are a lot of folks, especially here in the Southeast, that have at least had a chance to consult with experts from Tesla, have gotten contracts drafted, have signed the papers and just kind of sitting there waiting. And there's been no movement, no activity for a lot of homeowners. And again, there's certain extenuating circumstances that all of us have to understand are happening. But when you look at Q3 2018, Tesla's most profitable quarter ever, that was on the heels of what they did a few months before, where they basically put all their eggs in a basket for Model 3 production. I said, we got to get these cars delivered. We have to prove that we can do this for our first mass market vehicle. And they did it. And Q3 2018 was their best quarter to date ever. And that started their trend where they've seen now where 6 of the last 8 quarters have been profitable quarters for Tesla. And it started with that quarter nearly 2 years ago. So it's really interesting what happens when you take all that energy, and you put it into a focus of need, and then what happens as a result of that. So it'd be great to see once things with Gigafactory Texas and all this other stuff sort of kind of keep moving in motion, that at some point they really say, yeah, we really need to focus our energies on solar.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting area to pay attention to, and really looking forward to seeing more activity on that front. The cars are exciting and stuff, but this other energy stuff is just like, it always seems to be off to the side, but it's got the most growth potential because there's nobody else in the market that's offering anything close to what they're doing.
And the reach, I think, is far beyond the homeowner. It's the way that it works in the energy sector as a whole, right? Like a lot of energy companies like having solar because there's a lot of initiatives and a lot of programs in various markets where essentially the electric companies, utility companies can pay you to take the energy you're not using and then use that for credits and buybacks and that sort of thing. So it's a cyclical relationship that gets set up by having these installations. So it just makes more sense. The faster you're able to get those installed, the better off everyone is, especially the environment.
I know our local power company has installed a Tesla Power Pack system, and it's very quiet. It's off to the corner and stuff, and it is 16 megawatts at peak. So, and apparently it's working so well, I heard through the grapevine they're looking at potentially building a second one.
Nice.
So, yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Autopilot, because one of the things that Tesla did was they were able to realize $48 million of extra revenue from deferred revenue from FSD sales in this quarter. So Elon took to the earnings call and talked about the FSD situation. This clip is from Elon, and it's about a minute long, so let's listen in.
And then for full self-driving, we launched traffic lights and stop signs, and we continue to improve that and make it more robust. And we're currently testing full self-driving software for intersections and city streets and narrow streets. So I personally test the latest alpha build of full self-driving software when I drive my car, and it is really, I think, profoundly better than people realize. It's like amazing. It's almost getting to the point where I can go from my house to work with no interventions, despite going through construction and widely varying situations. So this is why I'm very confident about full self-driving functionality being complete by the end of this year, because I'm literally driving it. I've never been more optimistic or excited about the future of Tesla and the history of the company.
So something important to make note there. Just so you know, Elon lives in Bel Air, and they have headquarters in Palo Alto, which is basically on the LA. Sorry, I'm getting LA confused with San Francisco. I apologize to our California listeners. Sorry, my geography escaped my mind there
That
for a
place
second.
where the sun shines all the time.
Sorry. When he says work, Elon spends most of his time in Hawthorne at the SpaceX facility. So you'll have to go on Google Maps and just kind of draw it out to get an idea of how long it goes or how far of a drive it is. But I think that's important to pay attention as to what kind of progress they're making. Now, keep in mind, these are internal builds. These are not available to the outside public at this point. So I think it's encouraging to see that they are making some progress. And he did say almost no intervention. So we got a long ways before we even get to level 5, let alone level 4, but it is encouraging. They are going to be, I think the next big feature set that they're going to be releasing in FSD is going to be intersection. So turning in intersections. The latest update that is going out right now to most of the fleet is it .28? I think it's .28. And it releases the restriction on autopilot and auto steer with the traffic light control to 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, whereas before it was locked down solid. You couldn't get past it. So they're starting to relax a little bit. And, we had predicted that this was going to happen as they gain more confidence in data coming back. So that's what's currently rolling out. So anyways, handling intersections and roundabouts, those are two big things I think that would really make a huge difference. I mean, there's edge cases for everything. So, any thoughts on that?
I was very excited about the way he described the transition to the next phase of how it processes the outside world. Like he described right now, it's looking at a rapid series of 2D images, right? So it's kind of like a stop animation sort of scenario. Now it's obviously very fast, but it's still seeing things in 2D and trying to juxtapose what's going on. Whereas he says it's getting close to 4D now, because with the next level of it, it's going to be able to really interpret 3D objects in the 3 dimensions, plus add the time component. He says it's like going from still images to video and adding that continuous time sequence. So imagine what that's going to do in terms of its ability to interpret a situation and react. Like he says, this is like, he loves that order of magnitude thing, right? But this is one of those situations where it certainly sounds like that's what it's going to be like. So I'm very excited about that. And yet I still have in the back of my mind my rare moment of pessimism. How is it going to work in the snow when the cameras are blocked? Please tell us how that's going to work. But the rest of it, I'm super stoked about.
Ian, you're so right. And I also tend to have this dose of pessimism too, for a couple of things. One is what happens in situations where, for example, the signals are out. Whether they're blinking certain colors or if they're just as a power outage and an intersection does not work. Also, how do they manage intersections where, for example, a stop sign may have a partial obstruction from a tree branch or something like that, where we, the person driving, can see that, but maybe the car does not see the entire 8 sides of a stop sign. So there's a number of different factors that we don't yet know how Tesla's going to fix that in real world situations. But I look at Autopilot, to me, at the level 2, level 3, we're sort of bordering on now. I always look at it as a proof of concept application, because even when they get to the point, let's say it's in the next 24 months, where they beta test the heck out of every possible scenario, and they've ruled out issues with snow in the winter, they've ruled out issues with, signal issues and things like that. Well, ideally, you're the only company producing it. So unless you have competitors who have their own software in their vehicles that have something that ends up becoming like that, it's still going to go through a lot of regulatory loopholes to try to get this thing passed. So I sort of have tempered optimism, I think, as most owners should do at this stage. It's great to hear the advancements. It's like in terms of coding, it's amazing what they're able to do with the technology, given the limitations the vehicle has. If it had more cameras, I'm sure that'd be a lot easier to do some stuff because you get more data around the vehicle. But they're doing a lot with what they already have. So these are all good questions. I don't think anybody should even think that they're remotely close. I mean, even Elon, when he was expressing that, I'm like Trevor pointed out, it's pretty close to not being, his hands on the wheel sort of reactions. That still means until you can go from A to B with zero contact I mean, if Elon says, hey, I sat in the back of my car and it went from A to B, no problem, now we're talking some serious advancements, but there's still a lot of stuff to come. It really comes down to the lawmakers signing off on it. And it may just be, state by state versus across the entire federal highway system.
I want to add on one thing that you brought up early, because it is a really serious concern. Like, what happens if the stop signs are obscured, could be by snow, up here, everything's obscured by snow. It always brings back to the same point. But what about if the ramp, like you described, or the other one, what if the traffic lights are out? And what gives me confidence there is how eerily good it is at predicting the location of these things. And then if it doesn't see what it expects, I think it's going to flag you. Like, I know, just driving around with FSD on country roads, I've had a few situations where there's like a 90-degree right-hand corner and the stop sign's over there. It's obscured by a house or something. And I still get the warning, 200 meters before I get there, around the corner, there's going to be a stop sign. I'm like, the first time I did it, I freaked. It's like, oh my God, these things are all geolocated. It's got it in its memory that it expects the stop sign. So even if it can't see it, if it had arrived there and there was something wrong, I think the car would default to, okay, human intervention, because I don't see what this is. And eventually, I guess there'll be an FSD solution for what to do in that scenario. But at least the car has a backup of somehow to know what's supposed to be there. So if it arrived at a traffic light like that, I'd be curious to see. Like the next time there's a power outage, I got to go drive now just to see what it's going to do.
Yeah, I'm also curious too. Like in areas where here in South Florida, if a hurricane comes through here and where a light or a sign once was but no longer is because it's been blown down or what have you, will the car still alert me? Will it sort of just look through the cameras and see that nothing is there? So there's a lot of scenarios I think really, really matter in terms of safety, because for number one, and we stress this every single time we mention autopilot, it is ultimately the driver's responsibility to always maintain 100% paying attention to what's happening on the road, because any object at any time can come out in front of you or something could change, and you want to make sure you're in full control of the car. So don't trust the system 100% all the time. But to that end, as great as it is, we know there's a lot of room for opportunity to make it better. And it's good that the engineering team and the designers are working on that, taking all of the video and all the reports that we as drivers, collect throughout the entire year. And they use all that data to make the system even better. So kudos to them.
Which brings me to something we need to discuss, and I'm sorry we're going to spend some time on FSD here because it is, everybody likes to talk about it. Ian, you made a point about the traffic lights. Right now as it stands, they're using a vision-based system. So it's one thing to have stop signs because those can be geotagged. I've experienced it myself here. Stop signs obscured by some bushes. The car certainly knew there was one there, didn't see it. So obviously that's happening. Street lights, on the other hand, as far as Tesla's using it right now, is looking for the red and the signals. So if the signals are not there, what does it do? Mm-hmm. So Elon has even gone on record many times. It seems to be I'm not going to say backpedaling, but he's clarified. He says they expect to have FSD in limited situations, which means not all situations. So how does that jive with the fact that they want to go to this robo-taxi fleet in the sense that they're driverless, they're driving around doing their own thing? So one of these robots comes in and let's say the front end gets obscured with snow. I'm talking about a current Model 3 that doesn't have a radar heater, or the cameras are obscured, or the lights are out, and you got this robo-taxi sitting in the middle of an intersection and everybody's getting really pissed off. What's going to happen? Is somebody going to give the car a push? Is there going to be like an emergency response team coming out to handle it? I mean, these are edge cases that need to be thought of. So I really, every time Elon says, oh, FSD, this and that and the other thing, you got this other thing sitting in the back. You want to do this robo fleet, but you don't have a solution for that yet.
I remember, when you're saying that, I want to go back to the episode we mentioned about the Nova special. That aired on PBS here in the U.S., where they talked about robotaxis and sort of, autonomous vehicles. And we spent a good amount of time kind of delving into that episode. And one of the things, if you're an avid listener of the show, if you recall the episode, we talked about that. There were a lot of different companies that take those really odd cases where an example was there was a person, like a delivery driver, who's parked on the side of the street. He has an object on his shoulder. So where the camera is facing that gentleman, you can't see a head, but clearly you see the rest of a person. The car maybe does it know to recognize that's a person, even though it can't see the full contours of a person's face and things like that. So it is, these very simple examples of city driving mostly where they're seeing different things, weird objects, those outliers that we as a human being recognize with our five senses, where a computer might not know what that is. And going frame by frame, seeing those anomalies and trying to train the computer to acknowledge what that is. If an umbrella is open or closed and there's someone on a face is obscured and things like that. So that's what I was thinking about when you were mentioning your point here, Trevor. Because to me, FSD, I still don't have 100% confidence they're ever going to figure it out in the next, say, 2 to 3 years. To me, it's just too advanced for all the different scenarios to say we've got it all figured out.
The edge cases are just so weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. Like we alone as 3 podcast people can say, well, here's 10 different scenarios we can think of relative to where we live in our communities. I mean, you guys living in Canada would mostly focus on winter conditions for the most part, because we know, and I grew up in the Northeast, I know what snow can do. It changes everything about how you drive, when you brake and decelerate and all that sort of stuff. But here in the Southeast, even like on a rainy day, if the rains are so significant that your cameras are obstructed, which I get alerts on my screen too when that happens, how is all of a sudden just going to stop? If it's a robo-taxi, is the car just going to pull over and the person's in the car waiting? Like, there's a lot of different scenarios we can't yet think of. But I feel confident in one of two things. One is that we can submit this information to Tesla and say, hey, these are things that we've encountered. The cameras might be able to report that. And so that data certainly helps them. But number two, I'm sure the engineers who are doing all these controlled environmental testing are seeing that and figuring out. The thing is, if you're mostly testing in sunny California, where it doesn't rain much throughout the year and you don't really have snow, you have to take the car to other places like they did with the Model 3 in winter conditions up in Canada to really test how the software works. So my hope is when they sort of feel like it's in dry, controlled conditions, if it's ready for prime time, I'm sure the next phase will be, okay, now we need to do X number of months of testing in other climates to see how it handles there. In the dry Sahara, in humid climates in the tropics, in winter conditions up in Canada, whatever it may be, to really see how that handles.
Yeah. Well, as always, we have quiet optimism about FSD, but with a heavy dose of skepticism thrown in as well, because all is not well everywhere. So anyways, we're keeping an eye on it. I like Autopilot, the way it stands right now. But again, the robo-taxi thing, oh man, it's so much harder than people think. I mean, there's so many people think, oh, it's solved. No, it's not, man. It is so far in the future. So they're making progress, but there's the edge cases when you really sit down and think about it. Like the next time you're in your car, drive around and pay attention and think about how a robot or a computer would handle that doesn't have the intelligence to understand that that's not a garbage can, that's an electrical box, and why are you tagging it as an electrical as a garbage can? Yeah. I get that here in my area anyways. Enough about FSD. Let's move on. Elon, during the call later on, people are asking about the range situation on the cars because, of course, they just canceled the plans of making a standard range Model Y. Elon feels that the range would be less than optimal. So it appears that Tesla really seems to be looking at making cars that have a minimum of 300-mile range. So let's listen to Elon talk about this. It's about 35 seconds.
With regard to passenger vehicles, I think the new normal for range is going to be, just in US EPA terms, approximately 300 miles. I think people will really come to expect that as, some number close to 300 miles as normal. That's a standard expectation. Because you do need to take into account, is it very hot outside or very cold? Or are you driving up a tall mountain with a full load? And it's, people don't want to get to the destination with 10 miles of range. They want some reasonable margin. I think 300 is going to be really, or close to 300 is going to be the new normal. Call it 500 kilometers, basically.
I'm good with that. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla. We were meant for each other. Range is king.
What's wrong with arriving at your destination with only 10 miles? That sounds generous.
Well,
Usually.
for the adventurous people out there, maybe not so much, but listen, the fact is, if you're thinking about an electric vehicle, you got to take your climate into consideration. Cold weather affects the range of the car. You have to heat this car. The chemistry doesn't work as well when it's cold. The car spends energy heating up the battery pack, heating up the cabin and stuff. So it makes sense that a car that has effectively 500 kilometers or 300 miles of range at 100%, to me, if I'm buying an electric car and I'm spending more than a gasoline car right now, they will get cheaper and they are getting cheaper. But if it's going to replace a regular normal vehicle and I'm spending that kind of money, it better damn well have some range. So that's my personal opinion about that. Not to preclude that of people that don't necessarily need all that range, because we know that the average person doesn't drive all that much during the day, and certainly less during the COVID situation. The range really becomes an issue during long-distance drives, which is largely solved by superchargers. And second of all, your temperature situation. So I think it's good that Tesla's focusing on that. And despite the fact that right now a 300-mile car, 300-mile range car or a truck or whatever you want to call it, would cost significantly more than some of the other EVs that are on the market available. Tesla is not sitting still. We have Battery Day coming. They're going to be driving the cost of these cars and the batteries down in terms of cost. So I would say that eventually you'll be able to buy a $25,000 compact Tesla that will have 300 miles of range minimum. So they're making improvements as they go, but right now, I mean, Elon did say, and I don't have the clip here, but he says the biggest thing that bugs him right now about Tesla is the fact that they can't sell them as cheaply as they would want to. That's the biggest thing. So he was dropping a lot of hints during this thing, and it's all directed towards Battery Day. There are some significant cost breakthroughs, technology breakthroughs that are going to happen on that, and I think when that shoe drops, the whole industry is just going to go, oh. So.
What also I think is hurting the cost factor is where's the competition? Time and again, part of where Tesla offers a lot of people a promise of a better tomorrow in terms of energy storage, in terms of solar capacity, in terms of the vehicles, the whole entire market. And when a lot of the naysayers look at the company, they think about, well, listen, they're bound to eventually collapse. They're just not going to survive long term. And I'm like, they've been around for 17 years. I'm not sure how much longer you plan on waiting. Pretty soon they're going to graduate high school. They're going to go to college, and they're going to, Tesla's going to get a
Tesla
MBA.
going out of business for 17 years.
Right. So that all being aside, is we constantly keep hearing now auto manufacturers coming up with concept cars, prototypes and everything else. But where's the major push? Now, part of it is consumer driven. I'm sure, the 2020 pandemic is going to really hurt some companies in terms of their progress on that front, understandably so. But Tesla's really the only one out there producing this number of electric vehicles in a market that's in such high demand for them. We know the European market, some countries there are, have legislation that makes it easier to get an electric car, with major discounts and government refunds and that sort of thing. For a while in the US, we had that, but of course now that's pretty much that well is dried up here for Tesla. So there's a lot of different things that are able to still set in motion. I know states like Colorado, California, others can certainly still give incentives for buying a car. But if there's no competition, it's hard to drive down the price of something because your options are limited. And if you're the ones really producing it, you're making your own infrastructure for charging, you're producing you're only producing the batteries for them. There's so much exclusivity that Tesla has where it's hard for them to be competitive in any other market to be able to then say, okay, well, they're producing this car, we're going to go a little bit lower to hopefully improve our sales. They're competing against themselves, which you can't really do in a market like this.
Well, as evidenced by their constant price reductions on their cars, and of course the Battery Day coming, Tesla is trying very hard to drive down the cost of their cars, despite the fact that there is competition out there, but it's nowhere near to the level of Tesla is. And you have to understand the automotive market in general is not prepared for this. They got to keep the lights on. They got to pay the bills and stuff. And they can't just turn around a great big Titanic and just say, you know what, that's it. We're just going to make electric cars from now on. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the battery supplies. I mean, everybody else is relying on LG and Samsung, and they can't even make enough batteries, let alone. I mean, Tesla already has enough trouble making enough cars as it stands right now. And then you've got all these other car companies that are going to go to LG and and Samsung and say, give us all the batteries you can, because it's just not going to happen. So I think it's going to be a real uphill battle. When these media outlets and the naysayers on the internet say, "Oh, Tesla killer is coming," I'm like, give me a break. There is no competition at this point. And I'm not saying that there's not other good EVs out there. There are lots of very good EVs out there. The problem is that they tend to be lower range, despite the cost might being about the same, especially on an SR Plus. But you got lower range. They don't have the performance. They don't have the connectivity. They don't have the features. They're very much stuck in the old way of doing the cars. Plus, and this is the big one, you got the dealership franchise market that is actively working against that. I'm saying, in general, there are some markets. I mean, Ian knows very closely that there are some in Quebec that are very much EV. So I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but the vast majority of them, it is a huge uphill battle to get them to switch and take a look. So I've said this before, and it might be a little bit far-fetched right now, but I think there could be a time when Tesla gets so big and they gather so much market share in the EV space that when customers are ready to make that leap, because let's face it, most people are not buying an EV as their first car right now. Most people that are buying these kind of cars have some money. They've owned gas cars their whole life. Now they're switching, although that is going to change as the younger kids mature and come into the markets and buy cars. But anyways, my point is, when those people come to buy an electric vehicle, they're going to look at the competition and they're going to say, well, they pay so much to Tesla that they're just going to end up buying a Tesla, to the point where the sales might be so dismal compared to the investment required to build those cars, because you don't build a car for $100 million. It takes about $2 billion on average to build a new car model from the ground up. And that's not including the battery situation. I mean, the only company that's really paying attention to the battery thing really is Volkswagen. They're putting lots of money into that. But we still haven't seen the fruits of those labors yet. The ID3's been delayed. They're throwing out concepts all the time. But I still feel confident they're going to get there. But getting back to my point, and I'm sorry I mean to move around a little bit, but the point is that when the customers come to actually buy a car, they're going to look at the competition, and they're going to look at Tesla. Tesla's so far out ahead that they're going to say, well, I'm just going to buy the Tesla anyway. So Tesla could end up, just by de facto, getting so much market share in the EV space, but then spilling into the regular ICE space, especially when the cost of those batteries and drivetrains get down to the point where, let's call it $100 per kilowatt hour. At that point, you'd be stupid to buy a gasoline car. So what I'm saying is that these other car companies could potentially abandon all plans to go electric, and basically leaving the whole market to Tesla.
Well, so there are three fixes to that entire problem, and I love having this conversation. So number one, and when I say these are focused really for the United States, because we know other countries are different with their politics and whatnot. But one is stop subsidizing fossil fuels. If you take the money if you take subsidies out of the market and you direct those and divert those into renewable energy resources, solar, wind, hydropower, things like that, all of a sudden you're shifting the market, because now companies are being rewarded for focusing on solar and batteries and wind production and things like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is auto manufacturers have to know a demand is there. Well, right now it's cheaper to get an ICE car than an EV or a BEV or a PHEV. And we understand that. But part of that is, again, because the subsidies go to oil and not to electric. So if you essentially divert the funds away from oil into renewable energy, and then all of a sudden now these manufacturers go, oh, wait a second, there's a cost benefit to my producing electric cars. So maybe we should still do that, so we can actually take the money that we're losing by producing ICE and get that revenue back by producing electric vehicles. And the third thing is, and damn it, we can't say this loud enough, car companies need to work with Tesla. They've said it time and again. A lot of their patents are out for use. Elon's even said it on the record a number of times. If someone wants to use our chargers, they can use our chargers.
But you gotta
Nissan,
pay.
I think it was just this past week, said they're doing away with Chatamo. Like we're done with it. We're moving away from it. And I know Trev tweeted out something like "death to Chatamo," but it's good. It's good to see that there's at least a movement to some of these manufacturers to say we do need to change the way we're doing something. So change is difficult. I get it. And Tesla is going to continue being far and away because of how long they've been doing this. But the fact of the matter is, if a legacy automaker wanted to really, really earnestly make the change, it's almost like if a restaurant decided to start serving vegetarian meals or vegan meals or gluten-free meals, there's a sector of the market that maybe they weren't tapping into before because they never had those consumers. And they might say, well, it's hard to change our menu. But you might add 10 menu items, and all of a sudden now you're getting a massive number of people coming to your restaurant because you're producing really good food and you're producing food that they want. So you don't know the demand is there because you're not producing quality materials. You're not producing those EVs that people want. So yeah, Tesla is going to be ahead for a long time, but it wouldn't take much for Volkswagen, Nissan, and many other manufacturers to take the leap forward to just say, all right, we're going to produce a car. And maybe their initial vehicle does 250 miles. Well, that's great. That's something. It's better than an 88-mile electric car. But I mean, people will buy an electric bicycle that maybe gets 24 miles of range and they'll spend $6,000. So like the rationale of like, well, it's got to go far. For some people, maybe it doesn't have to. There are some people that are good city dwellers. They don't leave the city very often. For them, a car like that would suffice. But ideally, the technology is now at our disposal to easily build a car that goes at least 200 miles on a single charge. But the charging infrastructure has to be there. And to me, the federal government could be the leader in getting that done. Because if you tell country after country, we're going to essentially build an infrastructure that you can charge any car, anytime, anywhere, and it's a high-speed charger, then it doesn't matter what your car does in terms of range because you're going to go from A to B, no problem, because you already know you're going to be able to charge as long as you have that route to charge on it.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of factors involved here in order to get things to switch. I just feel that the car dealers are in a catch-22 situation. They won't make anything unless there's demand, but if there's no demand, they're not going to make anything, right? And
Start somewhere,
right? You got to incentivize them somehow, and that's diverting funds. You're absolutely right, but the problem is that nobody's willing to let go of that whole oil economy. It literally props up the whole thing.
But oil is limited. This is the one thing that I've never understood with these people who make this argument is that we have a limited supply. Only so many dinosaurs died in the ground. We only have a limited supply of oil, and as far as we keep producing more stuff that needs more oil, I mean, you're seeing in the market a ton of electric or corded things like lawnmowers and lawn equipment and all sorts of stuff. Because at some point, there's a reason to get away from gas. Number one, it's just healthier and less noise producing, but it's also better for the environment. So if we're able to produce all these different things that we think about, I have to have gas and oil. If we can do that for lawn equipment, we can certainly do it for more cars. But ideally, even if these automakers say, well, we don't have the technology or the wherewithal to really build EVs, hey guys, at some point you have to wake up. You're not going to have enough oil. In 30 to 40 years, you might be in dire straits if you don't already have EVs because you may not have cars you can sell that can go anywhere if you have no oil to run them.
Ian?
That's
a reality.
Touched on the key point, Eric, and it's the 30 to 40 year part. At where we are in the life cycle, and if we look at the average age of the executives who control these industries and influence government policy through lobby groups and all the rest, they'll be long dead when this stuff finally wears out. But they can cash in now. So that's what drives policy right now is the people who stand to profit from it most in the short term are going to be dead by the time it's finally exhausted.
And that short-sightedness is terrible. Like, to me, if you start planning it, I mean, let's say we're going to throw a manufacturer. Let's say it is Volkswagen because they've been really trying to lead that effort now very publicly with the batteries. If it takes them an entire decade to get to the point of producing cars at the rate that Tesla is doing today, of say 200,000 easily in a year, and that takes them 10 years. Well, now your window of time went from 30 to 40 to 20 to 30. And so even if you start selling the cars at that rate, there's still a transition period to getting people away from all the ICE. So to me, it's the stupidest decision if you're a legacy automaker to go, we got time. Hey, people, wake up to reality. We're running out of time. We literally had this 12-year window only a couple of years ago from a report by the UN, and that now is 2 years later. We're about 10 years away from having to really curb our emissions before the planet is basically in a point where there's no return. We're not going to lower the PPCs or PPMs for carbon emissions. Like we're escalating at high numbers. So to me, I understand your point. Like, you're right. They're going to go, well, I'm banking it today. That's my problem for later. But that's how so many people of my generation are so screwed, because people who led their agencies and their board of directors and everything else before me were always saying, hey, we've got time. We're good. That's their problem. Well, guess what, people? That's not just my problem. That's your problem too, because right now it's everyone's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way out of it is, at the end of the day, it's where the buck stops, right? So you got to go right down to the consumer level, and you got to convince them before they walk into the dealership, hey, if you're walking into a dealership that has ICE cars and EVs, you need to go buy an EV, because that's what's going to send the message ultimately to the guys, running the oil industry, that like, you best get out of this and start building some wind farms or solar panels.
Butts and seats. Got to get those butts and seats.
Yep.
That's what changes it, because the argument from everywhere up, from the dealership to the car company to the policy people, is all that, well, until people come in and really insist on these things, we can make tons of money selling ICE cars. So it's the consumers with the dollars in the hand drive it. So to me, it comes down to, we all got to do our parts and convince one by one more people to do it. And what'll happen then, if Tesla's the only one that's offering really the wide range of performance and exceeding the consumer expectations, they're going to get the lion's share of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that ultimately will force the other guys into it. It's already happening. It's just not happening fast enough.
Exactly.
It's like you're an ice cream shop and all you sell is chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And then someone opens a shop across the street and they basically let you pick your own flavors. Like, you can make your own ice cream. That's the thing. You don't realize the demand is there until people go, wait, I now have a choice? Well, heck, if I have a choice, then I want this, this, this. Like, that's the whole thing. You go to a dealer now, you're given one kind of car to choose from. One.
Imagine what we're talking about with Tesla is ice cream that gets its own over-the-air flavor updates.
I want swirl. Elon, I want swirl ice cream next week. All right, speaking of which, let's talk about batteries here. Elon gave us a update on the battery cell situation. This clip is 39 seconds.
The real limitation on Tesla growth is cell production at an affordable price. That's the real limit. We're going to talk about a lot more about this on Battery Day, because this is the fundamental scaling constraint. And any part of that supply chain or processing at the cell level will be the limiting factor. So whatever it may be, anywhere from mining to refining, and there's many steps on refining, to cathode and anode formation, cell formation. Whatever the choke point is, that will set the growth rate. We expect to expand our business with Panasonic, with CATL, with LG, possibly with others. And then there's a lot more to say on that front on Battery Day.
Battery Day keeps dropping those hints. It's going to be big. Elon did go on. I didn't put it in here, but he went on a little mini rant about needing nickel. They need nickel mines. They need. If you're into nickel, get a hold of us. Notice he didn't say anything about lithium, right? Because everybody says, "Oh, lithium ion. Oh, there's not enough lithium." No. That's not the problem. It's nickel. These are nickel batteries primarily. That's where they need the stuff. So, anyways, battery constraint still a bit of a problem, but again, Tesla's going to fix that with their own vertically integrated battery manufacturing, cell production, all that whole stuff. So, come September 15th, the world's going to change, I think. Any thoughts on that? Crickets.
I'm good.
Crickets.
I've been waiting for Battery Day for so long. It's like,
well, I kind of hope that it's. I have very high expectations for it, although I'm trying to temper them a little bit. I'm hoping that they do much like what they did at Autonomy Day, and they have more of the people that were really involved with this come up on stage. Like I would love to see Professor Jeff Dawn come up on stage and say, "Look, we got the Holy Grail. It's an electrolyte that doesn't allow the battery to degrade anymore." Like, they got a white paper, for crying out loud, and that's practically what they said. So it'd be fun to see those type of people come up and do a little dog and pony show. And for the people attending the shareholders meeting, which is also on the same day, they will have a private tour of the Cato Road facility where they're actually building the pilot line for the new cell production. So that's Project Roadrunner. So anyways, looking forward to seeing exactly what they pull out of their rabbit hat. All right.
I mean, 2 months in 2020 seems like forever. Wake me up when it happens.
It's true. All right. We're going to get an update on the alien dreadnought situation, because now we're getting into the call section of the earnings call. I only have two more clips here to play. One of them is about the situation about the alien dreadnought. So what's going on with the factory situation, and the next one is talking about Tesla's insurance product. So let's hear from Elon about the dreadnought. Yes, go ahead.
Just before you go into that, just because we're all geeks and we remember the original dreadnought reference, but just for maybe some new listeners who might not know what that is, you might want to, because Elon didn't explain. Everybody obviously that was in on the call was like, oh yeah, we know what the dreadnought is, but maybe just give like a little 10-second definition so people can catch up.
Yeah. Many moons ago, Elon was talking about the Gigafactories being the next product, the machine that makes the machine, as he's very keen to say. And during the days of the Model 3 ramp up, they were saying that they were going to build this factory that was going to be mostly automated, very few humans in it. And when you actually saw it in person, the amount of robots and machinery in there would remind you of an alien dreadnought. He's referring to science fiction and stuff. So,
like no empty space, it's just all stuff, full density, floor to ceiling.
Exactly.
Wall.
And matter of fact, if you ever get a chance to visit the Fremont factory, and you look at the Model 3 line, it is very, very dense. There's robots on the ceilings and the floors and the walls. It's very dense, and that was out of necessity because they didn't have that much space at the factory to build that production line for that scale of cars that they wanted to do. So anyways, over time, they have simplified some of the production. They've refined things. It's not quite as automated as they were expecting. They had a whole warehousing thing with conveyor belts and stuff. They ripped all that stuff out. Anyways, it doesn't mean that they're ignoring it or not wanting to do it for future facilities, but they're less dumb than they used to be. Elon likes to go on Twitter and say, well, we're not as dumb as we used to be. So we're learning for things. So anyways, Gigafactory Shanghai and, of course, the Berlin factory and the next one, which will be in Texas, will feature many, many improvements as Tesla goes. I mean, Tesla's not one to do a cookie cutter thing. Everything that they do is pretty much bespoke. Like the Model Y has many improvements over the Model 3, even though it shares, 75% of the parts, as they say. Cybertruck could be even beyond that. So anyways, everything that they do gets better. So that's the alien dreadnought. So when you hear this reference, this clip is almost 2 minutes long. Let's listen in.
We're putting a massive amount of effort into manufacturing engineering the machine that makes the machine. There's probably 1,000%, maybe 10,000% more engineering required for the factory than for the product itself. We're certainly making progress. I mean, battery and powertrain factory, Gigafactory Nevada is, I don't know, alien dreadnought version 0.5, something like that. Starting to approach version 1. We're getting way better at making cars. You can see that in Giga Shanghai. And you'll see that even more with Berlin. And we're really changing the design of the car in order to make it more manufacturable. The fundamental architecture of Model Y will be different in Berlin. It may look the same, but the internals will be quite different and fundamentally more efficient architecturally than what we've done to date. Drew, would you like to add to that?
Part of the alien dreadnought concept is not just automation, but minimizing the number of process steps and complexity involved in the manufacturing system, which involves really integrating design and manufacturing across from like when the raw materials enter the factory to the finished goods exit. Yeah. And we're learning so much through doing that.
Jerome, you want to?
I think the focus for us is increasing the Capex efficiency. This is something that we've been working very hard for the past 3 years. And you can see that we can build new factories for less amount of money and much faster. And we're also reducing this, and it still is a lot, the amount of inefficiencies. We want every operation to add value to the vehicle. Value meaning moving the atoms closer to their final state. So we do not want any robot that just moves things.
There you go. So you just heard from Elon Musk, Drew Baglino, and Jerome Gouillet on efficiencies that they want to do. So they're talking about building factories faster and for less money due to improvements in efficiencies that they're doing, not only from the car manufacturing aspect, but also the cars themselves. Model Y, the European one, and the one in Shanghai are going to have many improvements over the American one. So Model Y is getting lots of love.
Indeed.
We already know that one of the improvements that they're going to make, and I have a picture here of some pictures that were shared by Tesla in their shareholder letter. this machine. By the way, if you guys are listening on the podcast, go and look at our YouTube channels, and you can watch the video version of this podcast so you can see what we're talking about. But anyway, so here's the first picture. This is one of the largest casting machines ever made. This is the one that's currently being built and assembled at the Giga factory in Shanghai, China for the Model Y. So this is phase 2. This is a huge machine. It is responsible for making the large cast part of the rear of the Model Y. The one that they have in Fremont is building it out of 2 cast pieces that are welded together. This is going to be making it out of a single cast piece of aluminum. And in the future, I would suspect they're going to do even more parts of the car in that. They also go and show another picture here. This is some of the robots currently being set up. This is some of the tooling for the Model Y being set up. And then one more picture. Some more robots. Robots are not very exciting right now, especially when they're wrapped up. It's when they're in action that's kind of fun to watch. So obviously lots of movement that's happening with Tesla and the Gigafactory in Shanghai. I don't have any pictures of Berlin right now, but you can go into some past episodes and stuff. We have some links to some really neat videos. There's no less than about 5 teams of people flying drones at the Gigafactory in Berlin right now. So you can literally watch progress on a daily basis. So it's really coming along. The last thing we're going to talk about tonight, well, listen, is there any thoughts on what we just talked about before we move on? No, we're good?
No.
Okay. All right. One of the callers had asked Tesla about the Tesla insurance situation. Now, if you live in California, Tesla offers a product called Tesla Insurance, where you can get probably a better deal than most other insurance companies. I say probably because everything varies based on the jurisdiction. Obviously, a lot of people in the rest of the country and other countries have been asking about this because depending on where you live, insurance can be rather expensive. So they took about I got about a 2-minute clip here where they talk about Tesla's insurance. So there's some interesting things that they're doing as far as Tesla's insurance. So let's listen in here to Drew.
We are working super hard on insurance. I'll go into a little bit more detail here than I have on the past. But currently we have a product in California, as I've described before. It's been quite well received, and I would largely describe it as a fairly standard insurance product with elements of it that are unique to our cars. So you can think of it as a version 1 of Tesla insurance. What we're working on now is, we can call it version 2, or we can call it the first version of our telematics product.
Yeah.
And so really, ultimately, where we want to get to with Tesla Insurance is to be able to use the data that's captured in the car, in the driving profile of the person in the car, to be able to assess correlations and probabilities of crash, and be able then to assess a premium on a monthly basis for that customer. And what makes this very exciting for us is the amount of data that is available with the customer's permission to use is not available in any other product or any other vehicle in the world. So this gives us a unique advantage in terms of information. And we have a decision point here where we could take the California product and replicate that into other states, or we could delay going into additional states and instead put more effort into the telematics side of this. And we chose the latter. And where we are now is nearly complete with the risk and cost analysis associated with the first version of the telematics product. We hope to be filing that in a handful of states with regulators very shortly. And assuming that regulatory approvals go smoothly, we hope to have this in a handful of states by the end of the year. We'll continue to file for approval in additional states. With regulatory approval there, we'll continue to roll this out nationwide as quickly as we can. And then that product, as we continue to collect more data and we iterate on it, will be version 2, version 3, etc., as we continue to refine that.
Well, there you go. Telematics. That's the key word takeaway from this one. My takeaway from this, personalized insurance, not like how old are you, where do you live, that type of thing, how long you've been driving. It's actually correlated to the way you drive. So I'm hoping that it ends up with more realistic insurance rates for people long term. So this is, insurance companies generally, they have lots of metrics. They have lots of numbers that they look at. That's pretty obvious. I mean, I've lived in different jurisdictions and insurance rates changed, based on that type of thing. But the way Tesla is trying to do this is actually is even more detailed than that. There have been efforts by some insurance companies to put, black box in a car. We'll give you better insurance rate if you don't go over the speed limit type of thing. That's nothing new. That's been around for some time. But I think Tesla's really looking at this from a telematics aspect to really offer more personalized insurance to a wide range of customers, and of course taking into account the safety of these cars. Now, I know for a fact that insurance rates where I live have actually gone up on Teslas, mainly because with the flood of Model 3s that have come in, there have been a lot more repairs to cars from accidents and stuff. So obviously, insurance companies they want their money. They don't want to give out their money. They like to fight with you when it comes to insurance claims. So my insurance rate in my case actually, almost went up about, they wanted to charge me, I think it was $400 or $500 more a year. And no change on my part. Like, nothing's changed. Just the insurance premium went up. And thank goodness for my my broker who called me up and says, look, we're calling you to let you know that they want to jack up your prices, and we're here to look after you. And certainly they found me a better insurance and better underwriter that was able to keep the prices down. But anyways, I'd be curious to see what Tesla would be able to offer once they get outside of California. What are you guys' thoughts on the insurance situation? The collective sigh of desperation.
The less my insurance knows about how I drive, the better. I'll tell you right now, I'm never going to beat the deal I get because it's really reasonable. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine. But I mean, I don't know. I say that. I mean, I would love to know exactly how the telematics model works, because, it's easy to say, well, you drive, higher than the speed than the average person, but it's not an enormous, I'm in the upper 90 percentile of whatever traffic flows at type of thing. And I like to enjoy the car's acceleration. Why the hell else would I buy a performance Model 3?
Mm-hmm.
I think the cruelest joke would be Tesla to come back to you, oh my God, you're accelerating and braking and cornering so fast. Yeah, idiots. That's why I bought this car. Why do you think I paid all the money for the performance model? So I kind of laugh when I think about all that. It's like I'm expected to drive it like a Micra. Like, are you for real? To get the premium rate. So a lot of it would have to do with, like, what do they define, as safe driving? Is it like, do you signal your lane changes and you're courteous and you drive smoothly and you're leaving a lot of distance? The car can gauge all that. I mean, just with the amount of sensors on it, it knows everything. It would easily be able to tell if you're tailgating people, if you cut people off. So I'd be really fascinated to know if they could ever give us a little deep dive in, like, what exactly are they using to gauge you as your driver? Because that would increase my confidence in terms of. But if it's strictly, it's like, well, you're X number of miles per hour of the speed limit over. It's like, no, that doesn't define. I've seen people who can drive very quickly, very safely, and I've seen people drive snail slow, and they're like a danger to humanity. So I would personally like to know a lot more about the process. I think it would be fascinating.
Another aspect of Tesla disrupting another market, right? Using their technology advantage. All right, Eric, you want to say something?
I hate insurance companies so bad. All right. So here's a few things. In my state, here in Florida, which is an effing nightmare for a number of reasons. It's a no-fault state. We have a lot of uninsured drivers down here. You're supposed to have it in order to get a license and get a car, but all right.
Eric, do you know what the fine is if someone's caught without insurance? Like, what do they fine?
I don't know. I think it's the Cuban sandwich or something. I have no idea.
It's an automatic $5,000 fine here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah,
if there's one thing I've really, really gotten accustomed to driving here in Florida is if I lived in a different county, I live in Palm Beach County. If I lived in a different county, a less populous county, my insurance rate for the exact same car is less. So even if safe driver, if I don't do what Ian does, where I accelerate from 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, I don't turn corners like I'm trying to show off my stunt car in a Bond film or something. Even with that, it's the market I'm in that dictates my rate.
Yeah.
So insurance companies can certainly tell you, listen, if you're a safe driver, we reward you with discounts and blah, blah, blah. And my thing is, and I'm going to bleep the expletive right now. I don't give a flying bleep what you're telling me, because if I am in the wrong market, my rates are sky freaking high. I remember when I first got my car, I had a Honda Fit before. My monthly rate for that car, I want to say it was, I don't know, maybe about $100, maybe. I got my Model 3. It jumped to like $190.
Ew.
That's crazy, right? So, and that was with the same coverage policies that I had in my or the same terms of my policy. Well, then I recently changed it, kind of get down, because my insurance company, who I will not name, I don't want to, libel anybody, but the rates kept kind of like trickling up. And it wasn't because of how I was driving. It wasn't because of anything. I never got into an accident with my car. It's just because the market I'm in and where my zip code is, the rates went higher. So to me, insurance companies can take a freaking hike, because as far as I'm concerned, whether it's health insurance companies, whether it's auto insurance companies, whether it's homeowners insurance companies here in America, if there's one thing they love to do is screw you out of so much of your money for coverage that ideally in most cases, they can easily go, nope, we're not paying for that. Nope, that's your fault. We're not taking care of that. Nope, sorry. And then if you are ever in an accident or something happens, even if it's like me, where you're in Florida, not your fault, my rates could go up just because I was in an accident, even though I was not cited for the accident. My rates would go up because, well, we had to fix your car, so now your rate's going to go up. And I'm like, what am I paying for if my rate's going to go up anyway?
Yeah, well, insurance is legalized gambling. That's all it is. And unfortunately, like where I am, the government mandates you have to have insurance. So, you know what, guys? If you're going to mandate it, then get in the insurance business and regulate the damn thing. Don't leave it in an open market where they can just jack up the rates. They call each other up. And, what are your rates this week? All right, well, we'll jack them up too.
You know what, though? I'm sorry. There should be regulatory approval to limit that, to put a cap on
absolutely.
how much of an increase you can have year over year, to cap on where, like, it shouldn't be that if I move to a different county in Florida, my rate drops by $80 a month. Like, what the hell is that? I'm in the same freaking state. Why is the amount different? Because I went from, say, Palm Beach County to, say, Martin County. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I know. The problem with insurance companies is that it's about making money, right? It's for profit. And they don't want to pay out the claims, and they put these crazy claims on there. I mean, I have people that work for legal offices, and when somebody gets in an accident, they sue everybody with the hopes that the first guy to come to settle, that's the money that they're going to get. That's how they operate.
An important thing is, like, some of the legal settlements for these accidents is really crazy. So that's a big problem. I mean, that's one of the reasons that our insurance is actually pretty cheap, is you can't sue anybody for anything. It just doesn't happen. It's no fault insurance. We pay through the nostrils for our driver's license and for the car registration, but the insurance here is relatively cheap. And that's a big factor. It really, that's the number one thing I think that can help, is when you take the suing element out of it, it generally brings the cost floor down considerably. Yeah.
But your insurance includes, your car registration, your yearly registration includes a portion for insurance, does it not?
Yeah, the personal liability stuff, so like bodily injury and all that sort of thing, is covered under the car's license. So that's why it's kind of segregated. Like, I'm paying under $800 a year for full replacement value on a performance Model 3, which blows people's minds. But the plate, I forget what my plate is every year, but it's somewhere between $400 and $500 for the plate, and another $250 for my license, for my driver's license.
What?
Yeah. Oh God, dude. Here it's like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Oh yeah, nickel and dime you big time. Well, at least you don't have to pay road tax at this point, right? But that'll probably be coming some. Like, you're not paying any more money for road tax on gasoline sales, so we'll start charging. There's a lot of states in the U.S. that will do that.
And the EV benefits, I got to say, though, here for now are incredible. Like, we have a toll bridge just 3 miles from my house here, and it's like $3 each way going across. I get that for free, and I use that bridge a lot. So that's a major cash. And all of the a certain number of the ferries that cross the St. Lawrence Seaway from, the Quebec City region on up, they're like $40 or $50 a ride. You get those for free with a green plate here.
Yeah.
That's big.
But can I just say, for the record, on this podcast today, it's July 23rd in 2020 that we're recording this episode. I would gladly, if we're done, I would gladly, if I could, pack all my stuff and move to Canada.
We have our own.
Winters are brutal. I don't have to walk outside. I don't have to go outside.
We have our own set of issues, Eric.
Yeah, you'd love it here in July, but I'd like to see you somewhere around late January,
February.
We'd have.
Why do you think we go to Florida in February?
Well, if good luck getting down here in February. I will tell you that having grown up in New England for
That's
most of my years, that's true, yes. But as every Canadian knows, a New England winter is not a Canadian winter.
No.
They're totally different.
No, you get a fair amount of snow, but you don't get the insane brutal cold that we get, where like your limbs snap when you walk out the door.
This summer has been pretty hot. I'll tell you, the last couple of weeks, like 95, 100 degrees every day.
But get the humidity that we get down here in Florida,
Yes,
and watch out.
especially where I am. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, we have. I mean, I must have talked about it back in the day, but at the end of February, we hit 97 or 98 degrees without the humidex, and the humidex was way over 100. That was at the end of May. We were 1 degree away from setting the all-time record heat ever recorded for the city of Montreal since they've been keeping it on the books, and that was in May. How wild is that? I mean, it makes no sense to me. It's a horrifying statistic.
Which is, again, a good reminder to, if you can, get solar installations on your house and buy an electric vehicle. Reduce your carbon footprint, people.
Please.
Tint your windows.
Stop ordering an Amazon package every single day.
Leave a bottle of water in your car for your pets. Leave dog mode on. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of the Q2. We like to do this when it happens. Yes, Eric, go ahead.
Do we want to mention quickly about Austin and Texas and sort of the dichotomy there of having Tesla in the state of Texas when you still can't buy a Tesla in Texas?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. We didn't mention that. We can take a couple minutes here because we're getting a little long here on the show. But for those of you who don't know, Tesla is not allowed to sell their cars direct in Texas. And we had always surmised that if Tesla was going to build a factory in Texas, that they would use that as a little carrot, say, hey, guys, time to change the legislature. But obviously that hasn't happened publicly that we know of, because my understanding is legislature in Texas only meets every 2 years or something like that. It's been on the books, and they've tried for multiple times to get that changed. Dealer lobbies, obviously, pretty tight, lobbying pretty hard to prevent that. However, there's probably a silver lining with this. Tesla's going to be building lots of Cybertrucks. Texas loves pickups. Enough people will be buying cars in Texas, the pickups and stuff, that there might end up being a mandate from the masses saying, why are you making this complicated for me to buy a bloody pickup truck in this state from this company? You better change it.
Or as Mark Benton calls it, a utility vehicle.
The utility vehicle, yes. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe Tesla doesn't necessarily need to fight their own fight. Maybe the consumers might stand up and finally say, this is stupid. I can buy literally any product I want, computers or otherwise, online with no interference from dealers or whatever. And why can't I buy my car the way I want to buy? Why do I have to go online and order it and then pick it up out of state or whatever? I forget how they work it in Texas, but yeah. Anyways, I'm surprised that it wasn't mentioned on the thing. I'm
betting that must have been. It's probably still being hammered out in the backgrounds because you have all
can
sorts
bet
of
that
things.
It bothers Elon to no end. I mean, he was in tears at a shareholders meeting about 5 years ago talking about the fact that anti-competitive makes him upset. He was almost crying. He hated that.
Yeah, I get all that. The other thing I can theorize is I'm sure if it was a done deal, they would have announced it. But there's probably, just because it's all so fresh, there's got to be a whole bunch, there's a whole chain of things, right? So you have all the dealer lobby groups, and then, you have the state Senate and all these people involved, and, they're going to have to change the law and all that stuff. So I bet you there's a little more inertia there that's got to be overcome before they can get to that stage. But I have to think from the governor level down, they must have said, don't worry, we're on this. We'll
But
fix
what
it.
better opportunity to put the pressure on the governance in Texas by saying it on the call yesterday? You're going to be in Travis County in Austin, Texas, which is a very progressive, blue-leaning area in Texas, which largely is a red state by all standards. And, in the U.S., there's arguments about now Texas being purplish, right? But it's still controlled by Republican leadership at many levels. So why would you then not, dangle that carrot on a very public forum where all these news, outlets are trying to capture the call and, put news stories as fast and go, Elon's now applying. Not only did they announce, hey, we're going to be building our next factory in your city, then sort of put the pressure on the state to go, okay, TikTok, let's go. We need to sell these cars. They need to have that cleared out before they break ground. They have to. You can't literally build the factory and still be sort of trying to figure it out if we can sell cars in the state. It's ridiculous.
You're 100% right. I'm totally with you. And I mean, it would be such a typical Elon power move to say, "Let's go, Texas! Come on!"
If you're gonna arrest anybody, come and arrest me.
I mean, you went to court to open your factory when the health inspector of the county you're in Fremont's like, yeah, it's not safe yet. We're going to stay closed, and you're like, I'm going to take it to court. You're willing to go to court over that, but you're not going to go to court yet. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of spinning behind the scenes.
I'm sure there's stuff.
I gotta think somehow discretion is the better part of value on this one. There's something going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
it's got to be
weird.
Hopefully for their sake and everyone in Texas, and eventually the other states like Michigan finally get their collective. You know what?
Connecticut.
Yeah. Anyways, well, that brings us to the end of the show. Eric, where can people have a chat with you if they want online?
Number one, wear your damn mask, please. Please, just wear your mask or stay home. Either one. Just if you go out, wear a mask. You can find me on Twitter. It's a recently hacked internet site that people know about, but my account was A-OK. No Bitcoins for my account, but you can find me on there. The handle is ECFix. That's ECFIX. Thanks so much.
Ian?
On Twitter, the handle is @IanPavelko. You can find me on the Tesla Owners Online forum under the handle Mad Hungarian, or Mad Space Hungarian. And then if you're looking for some custom Tesla wear, you can look up my Teespring store. Go to Teespring, teespring.com, and just search Mad Hungarian Evolveware, and you will find the whole line of Evolveware shirts and socks and other cool things.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. No short shorts, though, right?
No, maybe I got to do that. I got to get with the program here.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Twitter. The handle is Tesla Owners Online. Check out the forum at teslaownersonline.com. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast audio version, thank you very much. But go check out the video version. You'll see what we look like, and we have a little bit of fun. Last thing I want to mention, I am on vacation as of this Friday, so we will not be doing a show next week. Sorry, Eric. But I will probably be vlogging and stuff. I am going to be safe. We're doing a staycation this year, so we're not going very far. So no need to worry about that. All right, that's it for tonight. And thanks, everybody, for listening and viewing, and we'll see you next time. Arrivederci.
Bonsoir tout le monde.